Welcome. Before we begin, please note that this content is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. This presentation is a discussion about the 2025 AHA/ACC Guideline for high blood pressure and does not represent official recommendations. Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the 2025 AHA/ACC Guideline for high blood pressure. We'll focus on what's new for clinical practice. This is a discussion specifically designed for medical students and residents, reviewing the guidelines published in November 2025. Here is our roadmap for today. We will cover three main areas. First, we'll look at the key differences between the 2017 and 2025 recommendations, highlighting the updates in Table 1. Second, we'll review the top 10 take-home messages. And third, we will walk through the severe hypertension care algorithm. I want to specifically draw your attention to three significant practice-changing updates: the expanded contraindications in pregnancy, the new recommendations for resistant hypertension, and a critical harm recommendation for hospitalized patients. Let's start with the basics. The blood pressure classification framework remains largely unchanged. Normal blood pressure is less than 120/80. Elevated is systolic 120 to 129 and diastolic less than 80. Stage 1 hypertension is 130 to 139 systolic or 80 to 89 diastolic. And Stage 2 is anything greater than or equal to 140/90. The overarching treatment goal remains less than 130/80 millimeters of mercury for all adults. A major change in terminology is the shift from hypertensive urgency to severe hypertension. In 2017, we used the term hypertensive urgency. In 2025, this has been updated to severe hypertension. This isn't just a name change. It reflects a fundamental shift in clinical approach, emphasizing outpatient management over emergency department visits for patients who do not have acute target organ damage. Regarding cardiovascular risk assessment, we have a new tool. The 2017 guideline used the ASCVD risk calculator with a 10% threshold. The 2025 guideline now recommends the Prevent Risk Calculator, predicting risk of CVD events. The new threshold for initiating medication is a 10-year risk of 7.5% or higher. So, we initiate medications for blood pressure over 130/80 if the patient has diabetes, CKD, clinical CVD, or a prevent risk of 7.5% or greater. For lower-risk patients, we trial lifestyle modifications for 3 to 6 months first. This is a critical update regarding pregnancy. We have expanded contraindications. In 2017, we knew to avoid ACE inhibitors and direct renin inhibitors. The 2025 guideline expands this list to avoid fetal harm. You must now also avoid Atenolol, Nitroprusside, and mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists, in addition to ACE inhibitors, ARBs, and direct renin inhibitors. There are also new recommendations for managing hypertension in pregnancy. First, for acute severe hypertension, defined as systolic over 160 or diastolic over 110. Confirmed within 15 minutes, we must treat within 30 to 60 minutes to lower blood pressure. Second, for chronic hypertension, we treat to a goal of less than 140/90. And third, for anyone planning pregnancy or becoming pregnant with hypertension, we should counsel them about low-dose aspirin to reduce the risk of preeclampsia. For resistant hypertension, we have a new approach before considering renal denervation. The guidelines now emphasize a rigorous workup first. You must perform a detailed evaluation for secondary causes, carefully review all medications, and remove any that interfere with blood pressure. Finally, a multidisciplinary team evaluation is required. Only after these steps should renal denervation be considered. In patients with diabetes and hypertension, the recommendation for using ACE inhibitors or ARBs has been strengthened. It moved from a Class 2B, may be considered, to a Class 1 recommendation. ACE inhibitors or ARBs are now recommended in the presence of CKD or albuminuria to delay the progression of kidney disease. Similarly, for chronic kidney disease, the criteria have been updated. For adults with hypertension and CKD, identified by an eGFR less than 60 or albuminuria greater than 30, a RAAS inhibitor is recommended. Remember, use an ACE inhibitor or an ARB, but never both together. This is to decrease cardiovascular risk and delay kidney disease progression. For acute intracerebral hemorrhage, we have new targets. If the systolic BP is between 150 and 220, it can be beneficial to immediately lower it to a target of 130 to 140 and maintain that for at least 7 days. However, stop antihypertensives if it drops below 130. The revised recommendation emphasizes careful titration to ensure smooth, sustained control, avoiding peaks and large variability. Here is a harm recommendation for acute ischemic stroke. In patients undergoing successful brain reperfusion, lowering the systolic blood pressure to less than 140 within the first 24 to 72 hours can actually worsen long-term functional outcomes. This is a Class 3 harm recommendation. For cognitive impairment and dementia, the evidence has strengthened. It is now a Class 1 recommendation that a systolic blood pressure goal of less than 130 is recommended to prevent mild cognitive impairment and dementia. For secondary hypertension, specifically primary aldosteronism, we have new screening guidance. We now recommend screening for primary aldosteronism in adults with resistant hypertension regardless of whether hypokalemia is present. Also, to minimize delays, you should continue most antihypertensive medications during the initial screening, with the exception of mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists. In lifestyle approaches, there is a new recommendation for potassium-based salt substitutes. These can be useful to prevent or treat elevated blood pressure, especially for patients who cook at home. However, be careful and avoid these in patients with CKD or those on drugs that reduce potassium excretion. Now, let's review the top 10 take-home messages. Number 1. High blood pressure is the most prevalent modifiable risk factor, and our goal is less than 130/80 for all adults. Number 2. We need community-wide screening. And number 3. Multidisciplinary team-based care, involving pharmacists, nurses, and dietitians, is effective. Number 4. Remember the classification: normal, elevated, stage 1, and stage 2. Number 5. Lifestyle changes are strongly recommended for everyone: diet, sodium reduction, and physical activity. Number 6. Initiate medications for stage 2 hypertension, or for stage 1 if the patient has high-risk comorbidities or a prevent score of 7.5% or higher. Number 7. For lower-risk patients, try lifestyle modification for 3 to 6 months first. Number 8. For stage 2 hypertension, prefer a single-pill fixed-dose combination of 2 first-line agents. Number 9. Use home blood pressure monitoring with validated devices. Avoid smartwatches for now. And number 10. Severe hypertension without organ damage should be treated in the outpatient setting. Let's look at the severe hypertension algorithm. We start with a blood pressure greater than 180/120. The first and most critical question is there acute target organ damage? If the answer is yes, this is a hypertensive emergency, and the patient needs ICU admission. If the answer is no, this is severe hypertension, and we manage it differently. If the patient has severe hypertension but no target organ damage, the setting matters. If identified in the ED, evaluate for admission based on other indications, but avoid acute parenteral lowering. If identified in the outpatient setting, do not send them to the ED. Instead, reinstitute or intensify their medical therapy and arrange close follow-up in 4 weeks. If it is a hypertensive emergency, management depends on the condition. For aortic dissection, rapidly reduce systolic BP to less than 120. For pheochromocytoma crisis, reduce to less than 140 in the first hour. For other emergencies, reduce systolic BP by 25% in the first hour, then to 160/100 in the next 6 hours, and normalize over the next 24 to 48 hours. This is a critical new harm recommendation. For adults with severe hypertension greater than 180/120, who are hospitalized for non-cardiac conditions and have no acute target organ damage, Do not use intermittent 4 or oral antihypertensives to acutely reduce blood pressure. This is a Class 3 harm recommendation. Why do we avoid acute treatment in these patients? The rationale is based on observational evidence showing that intermittent 4 or oral antihypertensives in this setting are associated with increased in-hospital mortality, acute kidney injury, and prolonged hospital stays. Physiologically, patients with long-standing hypertension have altered autoregulation. Rapidly correcting their blood pressure to a normal range can cause hypoperfusion of vital organs. We must treat the patient, not just the number. To summarize, here are the 3 practice-changing updates you must remember. 1. Expanded pregnancy contraindications now include Atenolol, Nitroprusside, and MRAs. 2. Resistant hypertension requires a team evaluation and secondary cause check before renal denervation. And 3. In hospitalized patients without organ damage, avoid intermittent 4 or oral antihypertensives for severe hypertension. Thank you for joining this discussion on the 2025 AHA/ACC Guidelines. Please remember, this was just a summary. I strongly encourage you to read the full guideline recommendations and analyze the data yourself for a comprehensive understanding. Thank you.